Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, dear participants of the International Symposium, dear participants from the United Kingdom, EU, Russia, large Middle East. We will be talking today about UK, EU, Russia, Greater Middle East challenges and prospects. I would like to welcome you all at our important event where we're going to discuss the modern geopolitical challenges in Europe. We will talk about these challenges and the future. Allow me to personally welcome the co-organizers of our symposium. I would like to cordially welcome our Russian partner, the co-organizer of this symposium. It's the autonomous non-governmental organization called National Communications Development Research Institute. Now, this institute researches national, religious, interethnical, international, intercultural communications. My personal gratitude to the head of this institution, Mr. Vladislav Gasumianov, for his great support and assistance to the organization of this symposium. I would like to specifically highlight the role of the deputy head of Slovak Parliament, the Vice Speaker of Slovakian Parliament, Mr. Lubaš Bahu. Thank you for helping us to organize this symposium and taking part in it. I want to cordially welcome Baroness Caroline Cox of Queenbury, whose role in life of Armenia and Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, it can hardly be overestimated. Her name as the name of guardian angel of Armenia and Artsakh is known by heart by 10 millions of Armenians who live all over the world. My next word of gratitude goes to Prime Minister of Slovakia, the well-known Slovak politician Jan Čarnogórsky, for his assistance in preparations of this symposium. I'd like to mention the important and active role of Alexander Rahr, member of the Council of the Eurasian Society from Berlin. He helped us in preparing this symposium. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to point out that the turbulence of modern geopolitics has reached its peak today. Myself, as a physicist, I was teaching my students, and I was teaching them what atmospheric turbulence is. And I was teaching them how instrumental it is in polluting the environment. To my surprise, this terminology moved from physics to politics to represent situation in different regions. But we should consider this fact that apart from turbulent movements in atmosphere, we can observe meso and macro movements or vertical currents that mean regulated large-scale movements. If we draw an analogy with geopolitics, it turns out that apart from strong turbulence, we can see the possible formation of large-scale meso and macro movements. This is what we see today in the form of a multipolar world. Yes, a unipolar political world is living its last days. And we can see the development of a new strong pole or poles that want to disrupt today's world order and create a new one. For example, the BRICS countries, and among them China, India, Russia, and other countries. They started debating on the end of the old world order and a transition to the new world order that would be respectful towards laws and justice. This is what we're going to talk about during our symposium, among other things. And yes, we're going to hear the experts from different countries of Europe, UK, Germany, Spain, Italy, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Russia, and other countries. We will also discuss the matters of war and peace, not only in Europe, but in the greater Middle East. That is to say, in the regions of Middle East and South Caucasus, where we can see conflicts going on and the ghost of the Third World War is wandering around there. I wish every success to our symposium, and I do believe that the outcomes of this symposium will not only become important and positive for Europe, but will also be instrumental in maintaining peace in different regions of the world, especially in those regions where we can observe the maximum turbulence today. Dear colleagues, it is a great honor for us that our symposium is an event esteemed Prime Minister of Slovakia, Mr. Robert Fico, is aware of. And our symposium is conducted under the auspices of the Vice Speaker of Slovak Parliament, a well-known politician, Vice Speaker of the Slovak Parliament, Mr. Luboš Blaha, to whom I give the floor for the keynote opening speech. Please, the floor is yours.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. And first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Grigorian and his Pan-European Center, PANAP, for organizing this meeting, very important meeting. And I'm just glad that you can be in Slovakia, in Bratislava, because Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia, was traditionally labeled as a city of peace. And it was not the label only from the socialist times, because before we had the socialist regime, during that time, the Bratislava was really proud of its label peace. But still, Bratislava was the locality where 4 pieces in histories were settled. And one of the most important was in the Napoleon Wars in 1805. When after the battle on Slavko, Napoleon peace was settled in this city. So we had a really big history of peaceful movement, and this is something which can be defined also, or we can define also Slovak nation as it is. Slovakia is a peaceful nation. It's our first characteristic. It's our first primary essence, I would say. And that's why you can see also in these times that the new Slovak government is very active, also on the field of the Russian-West conflict in Ukraine, which is now taking place. And I will speak a lot about this in my speech, but for now, I just would like to assure you that Slovakia can be the best place for dialogue, because, you know, we can have different opinions about Russia, about the West, about China, about BRICS, as you said, about whatever. But still, the key is to discuss each other and to change our opinions. This is something which is quite missing in some kind of neoliberal thinking today. And this is a big problem, I think, for the world, because I read and I know very well the liberal thinkers like John Stuart Mill or John Locke. They were open-minded. They wanted to discuss. They thought that the democracy and the freedom is about discussion. And suddenly, there is only one truth. There is only one possible opinion in the world, as regards Russia, as regards, as you said, BRICS, as regards whatever. You can have only the Western civilization with its ethical universalism of human rights, and otherwise you are criminal or extremist or bad. And this is something which we need to challenge. Not because we have different opinions, but because we want to have a freedom and democracy. And you know that Slovakia, in the times of socialist regime, has some limitations as regards the free speech and as regards the democracy. There were a lot of positive sides of this regime in social sphere, but still in this political sphere there were problems with free speech and democracy. But now, after 1989, after this velvet revolution in Slovakia, I think the discussion should be something for sure. It's a necessity. And suddenly we are listening from our friends and colleagues from the West that you cannot discuss, you cannot have different opinion. You need to hate Russia. You need to hate everybody who is against American interest or European interest. And this is something I really refuse. This is my opinion, and I think that we should discuss, especially when we are going to discuss about peace and war. Because, you know, I have 3 little children. I don't want to have a war here in Slovakia or in the European Union. I will do everything to stop the war or to stop spreading the war, because especially after yesterday's summit in Paris, and I will speak about this more in detail in my speech. After this summit, the war is coming. I see it like it's coming, because if the soldiers from the Western countries, from the NATO countries are coming to Ukraine, it can be a war. It can be a really big war between Russia and NATO. Now we see the proxy war between these 2 regions, but still it can be an open war, and this would be much more dangerous. So we will speak more about this in our speeches, but first of all, let me just, in my introductory remarks, just to thank Mr. Grigorian once more, and just to say that Mr. Fico cannot be here today because he's in Prague, in the Czech Republic, and suddenly he needed to go yesterday to Paris to this summit, which was organized by Mr. Macron, President of France. And today there is a Visegrad Group meeting. Visegrad Group is a group where Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, and Slovakia is presented. And you know that there are some differences between Poland and Czech Republic on one side, and Slovakia and Hungary on the different side of this geopolitical thinking about Russia and the future of peace and war. So it's very hard for him now, but we are proud on him. I am the deputy speaker of his party, so deputy chairman of his party, so I can just tell you, whatever opinion do you have, please feel welcome. Slovakia is a free country, and this is a city which is open to dialogue. And I am very happy and very glad that Mr. Grigorian organized such a beautiful conference and such a good opportunity for dialogue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, really thank you very much, Mr. Vice President of Slovak Parliament, Ljubo Blaha. Our friend now is big star in Europe and in over the world. Thank you very much. Позвольте, чтобы я попросил сказать свое слово открытия.
Allow me to invite our colleague for the word of welcome, and it's Mr. Vladislav Gasumyanov, the co-organizer of this forum. I give you the floor, Mr. Gasumyanov. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the National Research Institute for Communications Development, I would like to cordially welcome all participants of our conference, which we define for ourselves as UK, EU, Russia, Greater Middle East, challenges and prospects. The topic of this conference is, I would say, acute, and it's open for discussions, and I hope that we will have a great level of experts represented here to discuss it. We became the co-organizers of this conference, and the reason why we supported it is, firstly, the fact that there are very few conferences today where EU and Russia are jointly represented. Unfortunately, EU stopped cooperation with Russian scientific and educational organizations, and today's conference is a step forward in restoring the exchange of opinions between the experts. And we are happy to be a co-organizer on a platform where an open dialogue is possible. Secondly, we consider this conference as a step forward in restoring trust. We can see the reduced level of trust towards international institutions, governments of countries internationally, and the level of trust between nations and peoples. The international law is substituted by situative rules of games where the judges are illegitimate. We see that on this background, there are two emerging poles, the West and the global majority, as we call them, Asian, Latin American countries, BRICS, Shanghai Organization formats, etc. Unfortunately, between these two poles, we can observe a bipolar ideological confrontation where there is a fundamental difference between the vision of political elites with regard to the global future. From the global majority countries, the mistrust towards the Western countries is growing. And if we do not maintain a dialogue, this polarization will but increase. We support any initiative on developing mutual understanding, this conference included. Thirdly, we do care about the topic of our meeting. Our institute is working at developing friendly relations. We have inseparable ties with our neighbors, and if something is not okay in the neighboring country, this affects your country too. Our institute develops solutions for different regions, and among them is the South Caucasus. Probably at our meeting, we will exchange proposals and opinions on developing complicated relations between European countries, Middle Eastern countries, and South Caucasus countries. Apparently, regional powers of Middle East and Central Africa become more and more persistent. They think that the era of great superpowers is over and are planning to make their own decisions regarding their own future. These states do not see any need in joining either West or East, and they conduct their own foreign policy. I think that from an open discussion, we can derive a lot of useful things and we can better understand the world vision for all of us. I would like to wish the participants of the conference a fruitful work and also careful listening to one another. I want to especially mention Mr. Lubos Blaha and say that we're really grateful that you took this conference under your auspices, and I personally share all the thoughts that you elaborated on during your word of welcome on that we should not be indifferent, and our actions and our deliberations should make the world be closer to peace rather than war. Thank you for your attention, dear friends. Thank you so much, Mr. Gasumyanov. You have mentioned what all Europeans should be listening and understanding. And I'm really happy to note that the start of our symposium has expressed these approaches. I'd like to inform you, dear speakers, that you will all have 2 minutes each for a word of welcome, and then you will be given 12 to 15 minutes to make your presentations. And now I'm honored to introduce to you our first keynote speaker, Baroness Cox of Queensberry from the United Kingdom. The floor is yours, esteemed Baroness. We don't have any sound from you. Baroness Cox, can you unmute your microphone? Wonderful, we can hear you.
Thank you. I'll say again, Dobry Din and Большое спасибо. But now I will speak in English, because as you can tell, my Russian is dreadful. But I would just like to congratulate the people who've organized this symposium. It is so important. One of my passions is to try to be a voice for people whose voices are not heard. And I'll be saying that in my presentation. But what is so good is that you are putting in the public arena, the international arena, the situations of many places, many countries, who often, at least as far as the United Kingdom is concerned, do not reach the radar screen or the international media as they should do. And one of those examples is Armenia. I'll be speaking about Armenia in due course. But I remember, and I've said this in Parliament, so it's not a secret, but in England or the United Kingdom, it's quite difficult sometimes to get politically sensitive subjects discussed in the public domain. And I remember way back in the 1990s, when I was in Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh then, and Azerbaijan was using cluster bombs, which is it's a war crime against international law. And I tried to get the British government to make representations, the government of Azerbaijan, and I was told no, they would not, because, and this is a subject which I think underpins a lot of the politics and the media in the United Kingdom. So no country has an interest in other countries, only interest. We have oil interest in Azerbaijan, good day. And so it is very good to be able to be part of your symposium where you are raising issues that, at least as far as the United Kingdom is concerned, may be politically sensitive and do not reach the international media as much as they should. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being a voice for those people whose voices are not heard. I have great admiration, great respect, and it's a great privilege to be part of your meeting this afternoon. So thank you very much. Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much. Lady Cox, thank you very much. Сейчас...
Thank you so much, Baroness Cox. Thank you very much indeed. And now I give the floor for the word of welcome to my dear friend, to Alexander Rar. You have 2-3 minutes, Mr. Rar, please. Thank you so much. When we were thinking about the objective of this symposium and we were trying to understand how to conduct it, we thought it's quite challenging because there is actually no dialogue between Russia and the EU today. And we decided that no matter what, we need to bring the expert community to Bratislava from as many European countries as possible, so that we hear different opinions and different approaches, because in Europe, there are different approaches towards a conflict in Ukraine too. Besides, it's really important, and I think it's to say that we are not desperate for the dialogue. We have been working with the Russian expert community for 30 years, and since the end of the Cold War, and today there is no dialogue, and physically it's hard to maintain a dialogue because so I would like to welcome you all, because this is a chance for a dialogue. 2 years after this brutal conflict, we finally can have a conversation here. And I understand we may have difference of opinions and lots of challenges, but this is good. You know, the very fact of the dialogue is good. And the important thing is not to have a fine a result like we had in Istanbul 2 years ago. We are able today to have this dialogue thanks to Mr. Blaha and Slovak authorities who provide us this platform for the dialogue, because we need to invite politicians after the dialogue. This is the first thing. And thank you for the experts from more than 10 countries who are present here. This is really good, and this is a great success of our conference, I believe. I was only given 2 minutes for the word of introduction, and I will speak later, but just to mention what we could possibly talk about, let's be more specific. This is my subjective opinion. Yesterday and the day before yesterday, two important events happened. One was the statement of President Macron, which made so many Europeans terrified. Some were misunderstanding him, and the others were welcoming his words with excitement. And the statement basically said that we, with the UK, are ready to send our troops to Ukraine. Chancellor Scholz immediately stated that Germany will not be there, and the Slovak Prime Minister also reacted. He said he will not be sending troops to Ukraine, and I think the majority of European countries will not be doing so, simply because we cannot start a nuclear war. We are forgetting what Russia is, and the US has nothing to do with it. For me, Europe and Russia in a war, it's unimaginable. Maybe I am a person of older generations, but this language, I cannot comprehend it. These passions, I don't understand them, and I don't understand what is the goal. And by the way, the Russian rhetoric is also insane sometimes. When I listen to some of my ex-colleagues and their rhetoric, it shocks me. I hope we will discuss Macron's statements and we will try to understand where it leads us. And myself, as a scientist, I really liked the scientific article of Fyodor Lukyanov in Global Affairs magazine. Mr. Lukyanov is a prominent Russian researcher who in his article simply explains what the options are, what the solutions are to stop this horrible European conflict. Among other solutions, he talks about a possibility to stop where the sides of the conflict are now. The lands where Russia is at the moment will stay with Russia, and Ukraine will get the European mandate. Well, to put this aside, I'm really happy that we as an expert community are convened here. We're not politicians, we're not solving any big matters, but let's try to have an open, friendly dialogue and discuss to understand it better. We can't make decisions here, but we as experts want to understand many things. So thank you to Ashot for convening us here at this conference, and thank you very much to the Slovak government as well. I do hope that we will have 2 very fruitful days and maybe historical days. Thank you.
Спасибо огромное.
Thank you very much.